Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sankofa Video Books and Cafe. I'm Christina Joy, and welcome to tonight. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. Tonight we have a lovely author in the building by the name of Adebola Ajao. She's the author of this amazing book, Empowered Woman. Um, so this Let's give it up for Ajao. Let's give it up for Adebola Ajao. Thank you so much for being with us tonight to present your book. Um, Adebola is a wife, mother, a mother of three, and a research scientist.
Wow.
Adebola received her formal education in Nigeria, the United Kingdom, and the United States. She received a Doctor of Philosophy in epidemiology and is currently serving the United States in a public health capacity. The book was inspired by her life journey, and she was moved to share the principles and lessons she has learned to maximize her potential in different areas of her life. Adebola is passionate about excelling in her life goals while pursuing a balanced life and empowering other women to do the same. Thank you so much, Adebola, for making this book and presenting us with your 5 principles for living your best life and fulfilling your potential. Like, doesn't this sound like a opening the year kind of book? Did y'all do your resolutions yet? Are you holding on to maybe? I got 11 months. I got 11 months. You say you got 11 months, y'all. I mean, you're right. 11 months. So, Adebola, please take have a seat and you can tell us all about your book.
Take it away. Yes. Thank you for having me, and thanks for the nice introduction. Come forward. Come to the front. You know, it's an intimate gathering, so we might as well make it a conversation.
For the people viewing online, can you tell them the title one more time? The full title?
Sure. So I'm Adebola Ajao. I'm author of Empowered Woman, 5 Principles for Living Your Best Life and Fulfilling Your Potential.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to do a little bit more introduction so you can get to know me a little bit. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, also a personal development coach, and I'm also the founder of Empire Initiative, and that's an organization that I started actually after writing my book, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. In my daytime job, I am a trained epidemiologist, and in case you don't know what that means, everybody got to know what epidemiologist is during the COVID pandemic. So we pretty much study disease distribution and risk factors. So where is the disease popping up? Who's getting infected, if it's an infectious disease, and how can we prevent it or treat it? So that's what I do in my day job. And I do work, now I actually work for the federal government, and I study safety and effectiveness of drugs and biologics to protect the public health and the patient safety. So that's what I do in my day job. Originally, I'm from Nigeria. So I was born and raised in Nigeria, left Nigeria when I was right after high school, moved to England to do my advanced levels. And for those of you that don't know what that is, that's usually like the last 2 years of high school equivalent. And came to the US for college. And I've been here ever since. I'm not going to tell you how many years that's been, but it feels like I have definitely been living in the US way longer than I lived in Nigeria. So that's my story when I came to the US. Growing up, I've always wanted to be in healthcare. I've always wanted to help people and have impact. So I studied biology in undergraduate, and I took a class called Epidemiology in my last year of college. So this really sounds interesting because you're studying disease at a population level. So I went on, got a master's degree in public health, in FE and biostats. you work for 5 years, you know, like you finish and you're trying to figure out, so what do I do with this, right? So you try a few things, you explore a few things. I work in clinical research. I did get an amazing opportunity to actually go back to Nigeria and work. That was the beginning of the HIV pandemic. So I got a chance to go back to Nigeria and work during the PEPFAR program, setting up HIV prevention, HIV treatment programs in my home country. So that was really exciting and impactful work for me. While I was there, I realized that I wanted to do more with my skills and what I've learned so far. So I went back and got my doctorate degree in epidemiology. And that's over 10 years ago. I've been working as an epidemiologist for over 10 years, and I really, really love what I'm doing. And I do feel like I am working with an agency that does, whose mission aligns with my purpose and my why and things that I want to do in life. So fast forward, when I write this book, right? I mean, I got married, I have 3 kids, life is busy, there's a lot going on, work is busy. There's really no need, no need, right, to write a book. But I do have to say that somewhere along the way, working as a professional, I did get to a point where I was feeling stagnant. And I was feeling kind of a little unfulfilled, which is bizarre because I'm in public health, I'm in public service. But sometimes when you are at the federal level, you're not really in touch with who you're serving, right? I know it's the United States public, but who's that? Right? Who's that? My neighbors, the people on the street. And I think there was a little bit of a disconnect, you know, with who am I really serving? And there was a part of me that wanted to be more in touch with who I was serving. And so I had to pause for a little while and dig deep and say, okay, so what are my true talents? What are my true skills? I mean, one thing is what I went to school for, but what am I really good at? Like, what do I really enjoy doing? And are there other things that I can do with those skills? Are there other things that I can do with this passion? And while I was kind of figuring all that out, I said, well, in order for me to move forward, I can at least put all that in a book and think back, what are the principles that I've used to get to where I am now? In order for me to move forward, I have to kind of know where I've been. So that's really how this book, the idea of this book came to be. I wanted to document the principles that I've used to get to where I am so I can see how I can amplify those principles to get to where I'm going. So I am going to read some parts of the book. As you can tell, the title is Empowered Woman. And I really started off the book writing about empowerment. Because I typically think when people think of empowerment, they think of people that are completely accomplished. They've reached their goals. Maybe they're Michelle Obama, right? She's accomplished. She's empowered. You know, all the other women that were Oprah Winfrey's another person I can think of. She's empowered. She's accomplished. But what I realized is that empowerment is really a journey. And you can have impact from wherever you are. You don't have to wait till you've hit, you know, you're like in your 60s, 70s, and you've kind of lived all your life. You really have to have impact from where you are, start from where you are. So I write about empowerment, and I'll read a few parts of the book where I defined what an empowered woman is. And I know that even though I use the word woman in this book, this really applies to everybody. Right? You know, many people that have read this book have told me, you call this empowered woman, but these are really life skills. And I'm like, yes, but you know, you still have to pick an audience at some point. So I'm going to just read some parts of the book specifically about how I define an empowered woman. All right. And I am going to engage you guys. So I'm going to ask some questions. So be prepared to, you know, kind of discuss. So an empowered woman is a visionary. So when I'm reading this, think about keywords that jump out at you and maybe words you can relate to, or maybe words that you aspire for or aspire to be. So think about those words, and maybe we can kind of come back in and talk about some of those words. So an empowered woman is a visionary woman, a woman who takes control of her life, who creates a vision for her future, who believes in her abilities, and is determined to achieve her dreams. An empowered woman is willing to take risks. She's focused on her goals. She works hard, gets what she wants, to get what she wants. She perseveres through challenges and finds the right resources to get to her destination. An empowered woman is determined to keep growing, leverages her talents, passion, skills, experiences to create her future. She says yes to the right opportunities and is not afraid to try new things. An empowered woman knows her limitations. She works to overcome them. She is not perfect, but she's not deterred by disappointments and setbacks. She learns from her mistakes and keeps moving forward with her goals. The last definition is that an empowered woman surrounds herself with other empowered women who are examples to her and encourages her along the way. An empowered woman lifts other women up and builds and helps them to achieve their own dreams. So there's a lot in there, but I'd like to hear from you guys. What that certain definitions, certain words that jump out at you from just reading the definition of empowerment?
Goals.
Goals, yes.
Resources.
Resources, yes.
Determined.
Determined, yeah. Mhm. Any other word?
Empowered.
Empowered. I did say that many times. I think growth is, when I think of an empowered person, let's just do the word person here, somebody who has a growth mindset and somebody who is willing to grow, who's continuously growing, and who realizes that life is a journey and we just have to keep being our best self every single day to get to, there's always the next level. And when you hit that next level, you define another next level, the next goal, and you keep working towards it. So if you guys don't mind, I would like to get to know you too. Maybe tell me a little bit about your name. Maybe tell me what you do if you feel like it, or what you studied if you're a student. And is there anything about this book when you saw this title that kind of drew you in?
My name is Jonathan. I work here at the store. I would say I haven't seen a self-help book specifically for women. I don't think I recall having seen a book talk like that before, and so I kind of wanted to just see what would be discussed, what are the different things that would be brought up, because we've sold books like that before, but I don't think I've ever actually sat during a book talk and I don't recall us having. We might have in the past, but because I know we've had one for that a man wrote, but it was kind of just a across the board thing, but still being that it's coming from his perspective, you might be getting it from that side of things, whereas for this book, you're getting it from a different perspective. And I would say as a man, it's a very healthy thing to still look into and see what are things that I can take from it, what are gems that I can take from it. Because as you said, it's really about growth and just about making yourself a better person. It doesn't have to necessarily be from one person or the other. I just wanted to see from a woman's angle, and from your perspectives, with your, what you guys, how you guys see the world, we all see the world, just see what that actually looks like, from your perspective, especially considering you're a very accomplished person as well. So, just thought it'd be interesting to hear what you say.
I like that, and I like that you hit on the point that from a woman's perspective, yeah, it is, the principles are for everybody, but I feel like women, we're more challenged than men, I feel, because we carry multiple roles. I feel like we are the bedrock of the society, and we're builders. So we build our homes, we build our families, we build our children, and we wear this multiple hats. We're professionals, we're mothers, we're wives, and we really bring our family together. So sometimes I feel like we have a kind of a unique challenge in the world compared to men. And so I was bringing in that perspective, working with women. I work with men and women, but especially working with women in leadership and women that have young kids. The kids get sick, you're gonna take time off work, you're gonna drop the kids here, you have doctor's appointments. And sometimes I work, I think when I was younger in my professional life, I felt like I could not bring up my family as an excuse not to be at work. But it's refreshing to be in a leadership position and be in a leadership position with other women and acknowledge that we do have these roles and that we can grow into leadership despite the fact that we're mothers and we have young children and we have this other responsibilities, and we should not shy away from having those conversations or letting people at work know that I'm not just here as a person to work, I'm also a mom. I'm wearing multiple hats. And the challenge, I personally felt this way, that as a young mother, I couldn't really aspire to grow in my profession because I felt like I wasn't going to be able to do multiple things at once. And I think part of writing this book is to inspire and empower young women that we can't do it all. Maybe not at the same time. Sometimes you have to do that dance, but that should not prevent us from dreaming big, thinking big, and really setting goals. So thank you for bringing that up so I can chime into that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, my name is Michaela. I am a woman who would like to be empowered also, so I'm very interested in what you have to offer through your book. I'm all ears, and I'm sure I'll learn a lot from it.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Can we get one more?
Me?
Yeah, just tell us.
I have two names. My given name is Chad, but I also have a name is Kazi. I'm interested in, I have 3 daughters, so that's interesting. 2 of them are adults. They all are entering adulthood. One aspect of your bio that was interesting was, I feel related to you, but I feel opposite because my ancestors originated in the Caribbean. Then we came here, some went to England, but I'm originally from, my family originated in West Africa, Benin and Nigeria area. So I feel connected to you in that sense. And but you went the opposite. You went from Nigeria to Europe to America. So I feel like we're connected in that way.
Absolutely. And it's amazing to see that we do have shared experiences and that connect us. And so whether, I'm going to write this book for women, but to see like some men in the audience and to see that there is connections, even though we're different genders, we have shared experiences. So thanks for sharing that. So the big thing for me about this book, I always think about how to break it down. And when I break it down, I feel like this book has 3 parts. And the first part is really what I call finding your purpose. The second part is about shifting your mindset. And the third part is about taking action. So I do see them as steps in the process of empowerment. So let's go with the first part, which is finding your passion. I think people say that a lot, and then people ask, what does that even mean? Finding your purpose. Like, what does that mean? Purpose sounds like such a big word, and what does it mean, right? But I always think of purpose as why am I here? Or why am I on earth? Who am I? And what am I created for? So, and I do strongly believe that who we are is already in us. So when we were created with certain gifts and certain talents. And we just need to discover ourselves and strengthen those strengths, if you want to say, lean into them, maximize them, master them. These are things that you're innately good at. So just work on those things and identify opportunities, careers, nonprofit, businesses, whatever, that aligns with those strengths, interests, skills, passion, abilities, whatever word you want to use. As I was writing this book, part of my challenge too is that I feel like there are two things about strengths. There are ones that are easily recognized. So if you're creative, I'm sure there are a lot of creatives in this space. You draw really well, or you sing really well, or you're a great athlete. Those are things that people can see. So they're easily recognized. But I do feel like there are also a lot of strengths that are not easily recognized, and they tend to be overlooked. And I think that's why most people struggle to find what their inner strengths or what their passions are, because there's a bunch of things in us that we don't easily recognize. They're not as, it's not like an outward appearance. And as I'm growing in leadership in my profession, I'm actually realizing those are kind of what they call soft skills. And those are actually truly what we don't learn in school, right? So, and I would just read parts of the book that talks about easily recognized strengths and those are not easily recognized. So just under Find Your Purpose, it says, you are gifted, I'm gifted, we all have special gifts and inborn talents that we need to unlock. In traditional talents we discuss, such as creative, artistic, if you're a singer, actor, photographer, those are easily recognized. And frankly, I put in here that growing up, I did not feel like I had any of those talents. I was not creative. I could not draw, paint, sing for the life of me. I was not athletic. I did not play any sports. But as an adult over time, I started to take notes of things that I do really well. And I'm going to read a little bit of some of those things from some of my strengths that may not be easily recognized. So for first, I am a logical, critical, systematic thinker. I think that's why I'm in the field that I'm in, kind of analytical thinker. Second, I possess emotional intelligence. So I'm in touch with my emotions and the emotions of others. I like to listen to people. I like to work with people. I'm also empathetic. I like to listen to people. I'm that friend that gives advice to everybody. And sometimes that could be a problem because you're constantly listening to people and then you don't have time for yourself. But I like to listen to others. I like to advise others regarding their challenges and struggles. And I'm also a natural leader because I'm the first of 5 kids. I was always raised to lead by example. I'm also a good communicator and I'm also intuitive. So those are a few things that I identify within myself that I don't think are easily recognized. And I put a whole list here in this book of a whole bunch of other examples that are not easily recognized. And I just put the list, it's not an exhaustive list, but it's just, a starting point for you to start to recognize the kind of talents that may not be as easy to recognize. So just a few examples: if you're adaptable, if you're a good communicator, if you're naturally confident, if you're a critical thinker, if you have empathy, if you're an enthusiastic person, if you're an extrovert, if you have good listening skills. So just to take the time to go inwards and really try to identify those gifts that may not be easily recognized. And, I give one way to do that is to ask yourself a bunch of questions. Just ask yourself, what am I good at? What do I enjoy doing? What do people say about me? What adjectives do people use to describe me? Just make a list. Make a list and kind of order them from, strongest to the weakest, and really try to figure out what are the things that I can do with this gift. So I always say purpose is passion plus service. It's not about you. Your purpose is not about you. Your purpose is bigger than you. So it has to be taking your gift, taking your talents, and using it to serve someone. So you have to be creative. We have to think creatively. You have to think outside of the box to really figure out all of this mishmash of talents that I have. How do I put it together to serve someone? So for me, I was telling you, like, I'm also a founder of an agency called Empire Initiatives. And how that came to be was after I wrote my book. Said it's sitting on Amazon's shelf, very pretty in pink and black, but who is it impacting on the shelf, right? Who's it impacting on the shelf? So I decided wanted to take the content of my book and almost like take it out on the road, do workshops and do events where I speak about the content of the book and we can practicalize the content and, discuss it and even think about ways that we can build it out to get from the beginning to the end. Maybe at the end, we'll be able to think about all our talents and then maybe set some goals based on our strengths. So I do those in a workshop setting, and I do events where I just invite women from the community and invite other women that are accomplished in the community to talk about different topics. So we've had events where we've talked about personal development, we've talked about financial empowerment, we've talked about balancing work-life balance, which is two different topics, and we find a couple of people in the community and we gather together, 30, 40 women, and we support each other and leverage each other's network to grow, what all in that whole growth mindset. Okay, keep going. All right, so that's the first part, is really about finding your purpose, tapping into your gift, and aligning them, finding opportunities that really align with your strengths. The second part of the book is about mindset. Second part of the book is about mindset, and the first two principles, which is thinking big and facing your fears, is really about how do you shift your mind. And I'll tell you a quick story. So after I wrote the book and I started to think about, I wrote the book really more out of passion, but then I do realize at some point I do have to actually sell this book, right? And I started to learn, I wanted to learn how to sell on Amazon. So kind of like starting that entrepreneur journey. And so I bought a course on how to sell on Amazon. The first part of the course was talking about mindset. I spent the first 2 weeks talking about mindset. That kind of bothered me a little bit, bothered my mind a bit. And I was like, I'm here to learn about how to sell on Amazon. Why don't we spend the first 2 weeks of the course talking about mindset? Little did I know that in order for you to really grow in life and to really keep getting to that your next level, you have to have a different mindset. You just have to shift your mindset. And mind you, at this point, I already have a PhD. So it's not that I haven't achieved anything. But I think sometimes there's a difference between being a professional and being a business owner. I think business owners learn this mindset shift very early on, mostly because they have to put themselves out there all the time. You're constantly trying to sell to somebody and to muster up the courage every single time to sell and to hear no and to get up and do it again. You need a whole nother kind of mindset. And so this mindset shift, really, the second two principles are really about shifting your mindset. One of them is thinking big, and the other one is facing your fears. So with thinking big, I can also read just a little bit of what I have in the book about thinking big, and also what I have in the book about facing your fears. I really like this quote about mindset. It all begins and ends in our mind. What you give power to has power over you. And that's Leon Brown. I really do believe that our mind is our biggest asset. And everything starts and ends with your mind, because it's all about what you tell yourself. Mindset is about your thoughts. It's about your beliefs. It's about how you handle fear. and it's about your habits. So here I have under thinking big, after identify your talents, use your mind to your advantage by thinking big about what you want to achieve with your talents. When you think big, you can break barriers in your mind. You can create new opportunities with your mind. When you think big, you can visualize your potential achievement on a massive scale without imposing any limits on your capabilities. When you think big, you overestimate what you can achieve, allowing you to achieve great success and reach your potential. Big thinkers are fearless, bold, optimistic, creative, positive, open-minded, and they want to be extraordinary. So really, in thinking big, the most important part is, I feel like the most important tool really when it comes to thinking big or what you tell yourself, it's really it's a positive mindset. So cultivating a positive mindset and continuously staying optimistic through positive self-talk and affirmations. So I tell you another story about when I was trying to write my book. Despite the fact that I have a PhD, when I was intimidated with writing this book. Yeah. And I found the right coach, and I found the right, how to write it. I mean, I can write, but how do I publish it, I had to find that knowledge, I had to find a coach and find a community of people that were doing the same things to kind of, help you along, make you believe that you can do this. And I had to write affirmations. I have to write on my wall that my voice has impact. And I can do this, and I'm worth it, and I'm worthy. And people want to hear what I have to say. And my experience is others can learn through my experience and through my journey. And I had to read this when I hit road bumps along the way. And I felt like, oh, could I do this? Or I'm not sure why I'm doing this. Or is this really, whatever those negative thoughts that come into your head when you're trying to, achieve whatever your next level is. I had to lean on those affirmations and positive self-talk. So that's one practical tool that I think is really great to shift our mindsets. So if there's one thing you can take away today, those positive self-talk and affirmations I think are really, really important. Another tool that I think is really, really important in shifting your mindset is gratitude. I honestly believe that if we're grateful for what we have, we are more likely to achieve bigger things. So I know we all kind of, it's easy to just ask and ask and ask, but I really do feel like waking up every day and just being grateful and really identifying things that you're grateful for on a daily basis. Something that I do practice is a gratitude jar. So every day writing what I'm grateful for and putting it in. So it has a way of shifting your mind into positivity on a daily basis and really helping you believe in yourself. So I give you those two tools and they're right there in my book. The next principle, which is facing your fear, is also a big part of that mindset. Right here in my book, the first quote said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. I'm sure you know that every time, fear is attached to everything we do. So anytime you have one big thing in front of you that you want to do, there's usually fear attached to it. But have you ever wondered every time you actually achieve that goal, it feels like that fear kind of disappears? It was almost like it was never there. I kind of relate that to that whole definition of fear is false evidence appearing real. It's like fear is real, but at the same time, it's not real. It's real, but at the same time, it's not real. Because once you have the courage to face that fear, it does go away once you achieve that goal. So one of the things that I discussed in my book is identity fear, which is one of the things that a lot of us fear. It's the fear of criticism or the fear of rejection. It can manifest itself as a fear of criticism or fear of rejection. And it sometimes comes from the fear that others will judge us as not qualified or not good enough, especially for those of us that have a perfectionist mindset. We suffer from this kind of fear, and it just paralyzes us from really moving forward. Another one that I identify in my book is fear of failure or fear of the unknown. We don't know if we're going to succeed. So since we don't know if we're going to succeed, we're just not going to try. And but fear is really about failing forward. Fear is part of our success journey. And if you don't try, you don't know. And even if you fail, guess what? You've learned so much that you can then take with you to that next level of that next thing that you want to do. So we have to confront the fear and do it in spite of fear. It's not that the fear is not there, it's there and we feel it, but we still do what we have to do. And it's really about practice, right? And it kind of reminds me of that kind of resilience mindset. The only way you become resilient is if you actually are challenged. When you're challenged and you go through a challenge, you become resilient. So you cannot conquer fear if you don't actually do the things that you're fearful of. So committing to your success, all the things I give in the book as ways to conquer your fears. Committing to your success, meaning identify the reason why you want to do what you're trying to do. The reason why you want to achieve that goal. If you keep reinforcing your why, that will also help you confront your fear. Some of the other things I offer in the book is being confident in your knowledge. You don't have to be the expert to do whatever that thing is. You just need to know enough to get started, and then you will learn as you go. And then focusing on the reward and not the obstacles. Some of us were like, oh, the reason we can't do it is because of this. We see all the problems, but we don't see the opportunities. So I think it's really important to focus on the reward. Like if I do get this done, what's going to be amazing about it, and focusing on that and not the obstacles. Also focusing on the process and not the outcome. Sometimes these things we're trying to achieve seem so big, and we have to break it down. At times we have to just break them down and say, okay, I'm going to do a stepwise approach, and that's really a lot of times how we can overcome. And I'm going to, when I get to the end, talk about the principle of taking action. We're going to talk a little bit there about goal setting and breaking down our goals. Another piece of the facing our fears, is that we cannot be seeking other people's approval. Because when we care about what everybody else thinks about what we're trying to do, we're already setting ourselves up to not do it. So we should be finding support, not approval, meaning finding a community of people that are big thinkers, that are big doers, that are doing the kind of thing we want to do, and find support within those communities, but not necessarily looking for anybody's approval. So those are the first two principles, thinking big and facing your fears, and I just offer some practical ways that you can do those without, in order for us to move to that next level. So I talked about the first part of the book, which is finding your purpose, right? So about the second part, which is facing your fears and thinking big, and that mindset shift, and using tools like gratitude and affirmations to do those. And then the third part is about taking action. Because even though the purpose and mindset are the foundation, some people get stuck there. Like, they read all this self-help books, they do all of this, and they never really take the steps to do the things. So as important as mindset is, and really figuring where we're going with our purpose, we really need to take action. And that's the third part of the book. I talk about taking action, and kind of within that is finding the knowledge and finding mentors. And I'll tell you a little bit about like the mentorship part, because that's really close to my heart. Because part of the challenge that I had was finding mentors in my professional career, and especially when I was looking for people that look like me, women that look like me in my field, in my profession, in my place of work. I was extremely challenged in finding those. And I think I talked to you earlier about how, I felt like I couldn't really talk about my family at work. And I wanted to know how women that were moving forward in their career were able to juggle motherhood, being a wife, and moving forward in leadership. And I found it really hard to find this. When I eventually found someone I thought could be a mentor, it was every time I went to see her in her office, she was so toxic about the organization. I realized there's no way she can help me. She can't help me if she's so bitter, right? So I had to move on. And I do have to say that a lot of the mentors that I've had are men, and I have to say they're not necessarily of my race. But I'm grateful to them. I'm grateful to everything they poured into me and where I am today. So going back to that third principle of acting, taking action and following through, the biggest part of that is goal setting. I think at the beginning of this conversation, you joked about New Year's resolution. And yeah, we do have to set goals. In order to achieve anything, you do have to set goals and you have to write it down. Your goals cannot be in your head. It has to be on paper, a vision board. I have a planner that goes with this book. And that's the purpose of the planner, is to set goals at the beginning of the year and then turn those goals into a plan, to a stepwise plan. So you can't just have a goal and not know how you're going to achieve it. It's like trying to go to Chicago but not know how to get there. There has to be a plan. There's a route. There's a way. There's a map to how to get there, whether you're flying or you're driving. You have to have a pathway. And so after you've identified what your goals are that aligns with your passion and aligns with serving, then you have to create a plan for those goals, and it's a stepwise plan. Of course, I'm sure all of you have heard of SMART goals, so make sure your goals are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, realistic, and time bound, right? You have to have a time. You can say, I'm gonna be, I'm gonna save $20,000, but not have a timeline to it. I'm gonna save $20,000 in 6 months, in 2 years, because then you can say, how much do I have to save every month to actually achieve that goal in that timeline? So that's just an example of why our goals have to have time to it to actually make it achievable. So once we have a goal, we have a plan, then we have to follow through with them. Being consistent. People talk about massive action, but really I think about it like massive action is really a result of consistent small steps. And I was thinking, a lot of people ask me, oh my God, a lot of people talk about writing books, but they never achieve it. How did you do it? How long did it take you? I said, it's really about consistency. It's about setting aside 30 minutes, an hour every morning and writing something. It's not, I'm gonna just, lock myself in a room for like 2-3 days. I mean, some people do that. I don't necessarily think that's healthy. And I think just everything we do in life is really about consistency. It's consistency that leads to mastery, right? Master whatever we're trying to do by being consistent. And it's really something that we can transform whatever we're trying to do into a habit. Once we practice it consistently over time, then it becomes a part of us. It's like working out. Right? So people said, New Year's resolution, I'm going to work out. And then they do it for like 2 days and they stop doing it because they went to the gym for like 3 hours for 2 days. Well, maybe it's just 15 minutes every morning, right? Just those little steps is really what counts. And it's really what helps us build momentum and helps us get to that final stage. So I'm a true believer in setting goals and making a plan and just taking it bite-sized every single day to get to that. And once you start to see the progress you're making, that gives you momentum to keep going. So that's the biggest part of that. In that, wrapped in the other 2 principles is finding knowledge. Whenever you decide what your goal is, you gotta go get the knowledge to achieve those goals, and finding mentors. So mentorship, I truly believe, is so important. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you have somebody, if you know someone who's done what you're trying to do, go get advice from them. Go get mentorship from them. And when I wrote this book, it was during the pandemic. I actually did not know anybody else who had written a book personally. I did not know. So I had to go online. I had to find my mentors online. I never met them, but I saw them online. I went to coaching classes and we were on Zoom together, so I felt like I knew them. But we they don't. Our mentors can be in our immediate environment, but they don't also have to be. You might have to find them online. And another thing that I've done in the process of my growth process and my growth journey is to redefine the definition of mentorship. So sometimes, I used to think a mentor was this big person that I looked up to and, have this formal meetings with. But I realized over time that mentorship is really whoever I can learn something from is my mentor. So your mentor could be a friend, your mentor it could be a neighbor, it could be somebody in your class, it could be a coworker, it could be a sister. If I can learn something from you to help move me to my next level, then you are a mentor. And mentorship does not have to be a structured relationship where I'm meeting with you an hour every month towards my goal. It could just be casual conversations over coffee. So I think once I redefined the definition of mentorship, I stopped looking up because I felt like what I was doing was looking up, and then I was disappointed because I couldn't find that. I started to look around me. I started to see my friends and my colleagues as my mentors. And I think when I did that, I was able to actually get more out of those relationships. I was like, oh, she's really good at communicating. Let me learn from her. She's really good at, this particular aspect of our work. Let me learn from her. So I think that's an important thing that I've taken away in life, and I think I can hopefully offer to others, that just redefining how we think of mentorship can help us to find people that we can learn the things we need from. So those are my 5 principles, and I would love to hear from you all if you have any thoughts, if there's any of the principles that resonate with you, or that you feel like either you've used or you're using, or even struggles, like what are you struggling with? So if you have any thoughts, I'm happy to kind of turn it back to the audience and hear from you all about, just to remind you about the principles, is the mindset part, which is the thinking big and facing your fears. It's the action part, which is taking action, setting goals and following through, and then finding knowledge and finding mentors. So are there any parts of those principles that you kind of relate to more? Some people might relate to one more than the other, or feel like I'm more challenged in this particular principle than another. Happy to hear from you.
So I'll say for myself, step back here. The mentorship aspect has been challenging because I say up until recently, I didn't really trust many people, and I feel like I keep a lot of people at arm's length. I'm not really like, I'm very friendly, but I'm not like, I don't ask people stuff. So now I've been asking more questions, and I'm trying to get better at asking people questions. And it's funny that you say mentor, because my mentee and our intern at the store, um, I always say that the number one thing I admire about my mentee is that she always asks questions. She asks everyone questions. She asks anyone who she thinks has some knowledge about anything else that she don't know about. She asks them a question. And I was like, when did I stop asking questions? Was I ever okay asking questions? And I think that I don't think I was ever okay asking questions, and I was just kind of expected to know things, and that's kind of just how I operated. Is okay, I know things, but like I'm learning from watching, not necessarily by asking. And so now I'm like actually asking the questions instead of just watching and seeing. Because when you watch people, you're not getting the full story. You're kind of just getting the highlight reel of what you're watching. But when you ask them, like, well, how did you do that? Or how did you get here? Then they'll tell you, like, oh, this was really hard. Or I had to do all these things. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, I guess maybe I wasn't wrong about all these steps that I was thinking about, and now you have more context for what you're actually doing. So I think it's really good advice because I don't know if a lot of people are always comfortable asking people for advice on anything. What about you, Chad? What do you think?
The two aspects was the positive self-talk and affirmations. I found those to be powerful. Then you went through the principles, but then you gave a plan of action. And like sometimes just talking to yourself, it's going to be okay, or I can do it. So thank you.
Do you have anything to add?
But I appreciate what I heard.
See if anybody online said anything.
I just want to respond to your point.
To your point about asking questions, I think that's such a valuable skill because even now, like in leadership position in my profession, and I'm realizing you cannot know everything. You're not going to be able to read everything. So it's really effective questioning skills are really important to be able to get a gist of what's going on and be able to support the people that you're mentoring, right? The people that are working your team. You have to be able to ask the right questions, and in order for you to be effective, really, because there's not enough time in the day, and the experts are doing the work, but you are trying to lead a team or a division or whatever, and you have to be really good at asking questions. So I think that's a skill that we all have to master, and it helps us all the way through. So I think that's really important. And I just also want to add to that positive self-talk, affirmations. I think it's so important. When we talk about mindset shift, it seems like such an abstract thing, but being able to give specific tools that you can use, and I give that example of how I used affirmations when I was writing my book, and gratitude, like I mentioned, is another one that is so powerful. It's actually very powerful, more powerful than most people know, in how it shifts your mind to believe in yourself, that you can do whatever the goal is that you've set out to do. So unless there are any more questions, I'm happy to wrap it up.
Thank you so much, Adebola, for the presentation. Everyone give her a round of applause, please. Thank y'all so much. If you would like to purchase Adebola's book and have her sign it while she's here, please feel free. The books are back there at the register. They're called Empowered Woman. And she also has a journal back there available as well, so you can either get them together as a nice little gift, or you can get the book, or you can get the journal. So you have options. Everyone online, thank you for watching. Have a good night. You can purchase Empowered Woman right now online at sankofa.com. Thank you all for viewing, and feel free to ask Adebola some questions while she's still here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.